Hello, everyone. My name is Raven, and welcome to Raven Gaming Labs, and welcome to RGL's Rants and Grumps, the very first episode of my podcast. And this podcast is obviously titled Everything Wrong with Today's Gaming. Now, before we get even further into this, I just want to say that all of this is, of course, my opinion because it's a podcast. So if you get upset about it or, whatever, you can leave a comment down below or you can join the Discord. And if you join the Discord, there is a debate channel and you are welcome to put why you think I am right or wrong in there. But, it's up to you guys. As well, I also want to say that there may or may not be some profanity from time to time. And, it is what it is, right? And before we get, past this, there was obviously chapters down below. You can, bounce in between the various sections, as you will. But if you're just listening to audio, you'll just have to go and deal with it in order. Now, the other thing that I want to say, this is a quick little plug for the podcast and the channel as a whole. If you would like to support the channel, you can join and become a member. Member rates start at $5 a month, and you get access to videos early and all sorts of other lovely things, which is pretty darn cool. And, I very much enjoy the support. It's super, super nice. So, with all that said, now we're done with the intro. We can, move on with proper things like the very first topic, which is going to be monetization, loot boxes, free-to-play, gamification, and DLC. Oh boy, where do we start with this one? So, for those of you that don't know, I'm in my 30s, and I grew up before DLC and all this other stuff pretty much was a thing. I mean, we had expansions and all, but let me tell you, expansions included a lot of stuff. And bug fixes, too, because, most games, the vast majority, did not have, built-in updaters. Steam wasn't a thing yet. And even when Steam was a thing, for those of you that don't know, the very first version of Steam was kind of not great, honestly. I mean, it was all for Valve games, and it had a lot of bugs. Like, the opening night of Steam was a clusterfuck. So, yeah, that's always really fun. But the other thing, and I want to talk about like monetization. When I say monetization, I don't just mean the price. Developers should price their games as they see fit. However, I do think indies undersell their game. I think too many indies price games at like $2.99, $3.99, $5.99, $4.99, $9.99. And it's like, there have been some games that I have played where that game should have been like twice its cost. Like Terraria should have been $30. Terraria is easily a $30 game. Now, there's a lot to be said that maybe if Terraria was $30, it would not have gotten as popular as it did. And that's entirely likely. However, Terraria is easily a game worth $30. Absolutely wonderful. But then you have games like Destiny 2. Well, what happens with Destiny 2? For anyone who's ever followed the Destiny franchise, it's a great game. Like, really. Destiny, amazing game. Love it. Good gameplay. The former Halo developers really know what they're doing when it comes to like creating a good story, good visuals, all that sort of stuff. And yet the game is expensive. They take away content because, it's not like you paid for it or anything. And then they have terrible microtransaction store, which is just, quite frankly, it's just retarded. Like, it literally is just silly, and people defend it, and, whatever, but I'm sorry. If I pay full price for a game and then buy all these expansions, I don't want to pay more money. And I know. A lot of people are like, but it's free to play now. And it's true. It is free to play now. But kinda. I mean, you get like a little sliver of the game, because Destiny 2 is a big game. I mean, even with them removing content that you paid for, it's still a massive game. So yeah, I don't know. People are just, in my opinion, modern game developers and the players are just so utterly lost on what, in my opinion, is right. So like, another great example of this is free-to-play games. I put that in quotes because, they're predatory. Typically, they're very predatory. It's gambling half the time. Diablo Immortal. What was it? That one YouTuber spent $10,000+ I think. Hasn't another one spent like 50 or 100 or something like that? It's like absolutely crazy. Like, spent all that money and barely has anything to show for it. It's absolutely insane. And like Genshin Impact, that also has quite the predatory store, especially with the gotchas and all that sort of stuff. It's just, ugh. I miss the days when I would buy a game and it just had the game. Like, how many games now do we have where when we buy them, there's already DLC? Even if it's cosmetic, who cares? Like, it already has content that they're going to install on your hard drive. And that's valid to say now because consoles have hard drives and have for quite a while. And, computers have hard drives. Well, I guess a lot of people, someone out there is going to argue, but Raven, it's not a hard drive. It's flash storage, or it's an NVMe, or it's an SSD. All right, come on. Everyone knows when I say hard drive. I know I'm older, but I'm talking about you have storage and it's not reading off the disk. Even then, Mass Effect 2, anyone had DLC on the disk. But back to the original point there, it's just crazy to me that we basically spend $60, now $70 for these bigger titles. And we've just completely and utterly lost our way. It's expensive to game now, like way more than it used to be. And games used to be very expensive. Like in the 90s, N64 games in particular were expensive. Like, anyone ever played any game from Rare, like GoldenEye, Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is a great game, by the way. Those games were actually quite expensive because the cartridges, they used the most expensive cartridges because they needed the expanded storage and memory in order to make their games actually be a thing on the N64. They were great games. Like, I have no arguments with the cost. I'm just saying that games now are very expensive. Not just because you buy them once, but because you have to buy other junk too. And I get it, right? Like, everyone wants to do the gamification thing, like Destiny 2, where, what do they call it? Games as a service. Like Destiny 2, Genshin Impact, Diablo Immortal. Like, they like these games because it's a continuous cash flow. It's not, they go 2-3 years, make no money, make $1 billion, go 2-3 years, make $1 billion, whatever. I'm more referring to the Call of Duty franchise. But even the Call of Duty franchise has Warzone now, which rakes in an ungodly amount of cash. And again, has a very predatory store, in my opinion. Fortnite's another great example of that. But the nature of paying money for a random chance for an item that you don't even own, it's insane to me. Because you don't own them, by the way. For anyone, that doesn't realize that, you don't own them. They could shut down the servers tomorrow, and you don't own them. And we're going to talk about that later when we get to, always online and DRM bullshit. But another really great example of game that's coming out is Hogwarts Legacy. Now, regardless of how you feel about the game looks pretty cool, right? Like, it's the full castle. It's big. You can explore it in the surrounding areas. And they did a wonderful job. It's a single-player game. And it has microtransactions. Why? Oh, so they could sell you unique cosmetics. Like, why is that stuff just like, why can I not just buy a game and it just have the damn content in it? Why? Why can I not do that? Who knows? I really like and respect developers like Factorio, for example. They price their game at $30, never goes on sale. It's one of the highest rated games on Steam, up there with RimWorld and Terraria and all those other great games. And it doesn't I know they said that they were working on an expansion at one point. I have no idea where that is because they've never mentioned it since, or at least I haven't seen it. Maybe they have. I spend all my time playing Factorio, not looking at what they're doing. But it's been years, many years. It's been over, a decade since I first saw and heard about Factorio and played it. I got an early access copy to Factorio like way back in the day. I didn't even realize what kind of game it was going to be. It was very weird and I ended up not covering it, and I'm still pissed about that. But because, it's like one of my all-time favorite games. Like, I love Factorio. But the game is $30. Tons of content. It's a great game. The developers are still releasing updates. Like, at a certain point, there's the greed has to stop. I mean, I understand, like, you have to make money. Like, these games are expensive. I can't imagine how much money Hogwarts Legacy cost. I mean, the sheer scope of it, for example, or even Destiny 2. But they've made it, like, Destiny 2 has probably made 10 times the amount of money that's, sunk into it with all of its costs, taxes, maintaining buildings, marketing, everything. Like, they've made a fortune off of it. Like, I do understand, like, wanting to make more money, but just kill the cash shop and I'd be so much happier with Destiny 2. Oh, and kill the crappy, doesn't work DRM so that I can, play from Linux and I'll actually start playing again probably. But like, that's the thing, right? Like, I rant about this stuff, but I really don't hate these games. I just hate the monetization model, and it keeps me away because no matter how good the gameplay is, the monetization model is always in your fucking face, and you can't escape that. You cannot escape it. So yeah, not interested. Not even remotely interested in modern gaming. I spend more time these days playing DOS games or PlayStation games or PS2 games than I do anything else. And these are games that I own, by the way. Like, I back them up. I play them. I still have fun with them. Sure, I've played them before. But hell, a lot of them are a lot more fun with replay value than other games. Which leads me to the second topic here, which is visuals. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting section, probably a shorter section, but still visuals. So modern games are all about graphics, and I don't care what anyone says. They are about graphics. I had this conversation the other day with my good buddy Nick. I was doing some PlayStation 1 development. I was playing around with it on emulators, burned it to a disc, and I got giddy like a child again when I saw that my 3D model was rotating around on screen. It was a pretty cool experience, but it made me think. And modern games focus very heavily on being photorealistic. But I've always felt, and I don't know if anyone else has ever felt this way, but like when we play games, like I was a big fan of the newer Resident Evils, like The Village and so Resident Evil 7 and all that sort of stuff. But it feels like there's something missing. And I think this goes back into visuals. And it's not just visuals, but Resident Evil just lacks that impact that it had when I was a kid. And I'm sure some of it's nostalgia and some of it's probably, things like just, things have evolved. I've gotten used to things, I'm not afraid anymore. But even now as an adult, there are moments when I play the original Resident Evil, whether it's the remake, Resident Evil 1 remake, or the GameCube version, or the original PlayStation version, or even the Windows version, if you could somehow get that thing to work. It lacks an impact. And kind of what I mean by that is, I really can't explain it. So, like I was saying, when I was talking to my buddy Nick, we were talking about this and wasn't really able to describe it in a way. It's more like a feeling, and I hate that because it's very nice to be able to describe something, right? Especially when you're trying to articulate something into a podcast where everybody's listening to you. But modern games are beautiful. Like Hogwarts Legacy looks great. You look at all these Unreal Engine demos, they look amazing. And, you look at like upcoming games and, we're approaching September, October. We're going to start seeing like big blockbuster titles pump out their trailers, but they're soulless. One really great example of this is Battlefield, the new one. What is it, 2142 or something like that? No, 2042, 2044. I don't know. Whatever the new one is. 2042 is the one from 2007. 2044, whatever the one they just released is. The names are silly. I used to like Battlefield, like the old Battlefield. And I think it was today or yesterday they announced that they were going to go back to and have a single player narrative and not just be multiplayer. And I think they're kind of missing the point. They can release a Battlefield that is only multiplayer and it'd be fun, but they've lost the point. The new Battlefield had no soul. Like, not only did they change everything, but it just lacked what made Battlefield Battlefield. And there was such a focus on getting it out the door in time and this large-scale combat. It was full of bugs, and it had visuals. Like, it's an amazing game, but like it felt like that all the focus was on the visuals because that's what sells anything. Um, visuals will get people to buy it, but then people buy it and they're like, God, this is terrible. Like, what the hell? Like, I want my money back. And I feel bad for people who weren't able to get their money back because that game was awful. Like, atrocious. I watched a friend play it and I was like, how in the hell do you enjoy this? It felt like Battlefield 4 with some extra stuff and then a bunch of stuff removed. It didn't bring anything new to the table, really, in my opinion. I mean, the 128 combat's great, but you don't have dedicated servers anymore. You don't have communities. Everybody's just bouncing around. You're always playing with random people. It's just terrible. And we're going to talk about that sort of stuff later, because I would go into a big tangent, but that would ruin the later, so we're just going to stay with it. So back to the Resident Evil thing. So I've been playing the Final Fantasy IX here lately, and I love the opening of it, by the way. And Resident Evil, the first Dino Crisis, the second Dino Crisis, because the first Dino Crisis is actually fully 3D, except for the cutscenes, of course. But the world is 3D. It's not pre-rendered backgrounds. But all those old games with the pre-rendered backgrounds, they have a unique look and charm to them. And I don't think it's just nostalgia. I think it kind of forces a certain play style, and it makes things feel more intense. But it's not just that. There is something about the look and the appearance of it, and it just... I know that we can do that sort of stuff now in real time, so we don't have to do that anymore, right? Like, we don't have to pre-render backgrounds. But there is something to be said about that play style and that visual. And like I said, I can't really place it, but there's just something amazing about it. There's something amazing about it. I mean, modern Final Fantasy games, excluding like 15, but up until 15, I'm gonna ignore the MMOs. They're not open world. And that you're thinking, well, that's not, that long of a period. Final Fantasy X came out in 2000, and Final Fantasy 15 came out in 2016. Or was it like the very end of 2015? That is a 15-year gap where they made like just a few Final Fantasy games. And they're not open world. I mean, you can argue what you want about, the PlayStation ones, but you could just run around and explore and do all kinds of stuff. Now, granted, most of it was very repetitive and all, but it still had that aspect, that freedom. And I think going back to, just modern games and their visuals, they're just hallways that you walk down. I mean, we do have and I think that might actually be why games like survival games are so popular. I don't think it's just because it's a hot new genre or anything like that. I think it really is because while they don't necessarily always have great visuals, and some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them have very expensive visuals that don't necessarily look the greatest. Ark's an amazing game and I love it, but come on, like that game runs like crap. But they like it just feels like something's missing. And I know it's terrible because I have this topic and I can't really place it, but having, like I said, played these games here recently, that is something that I really don't like. Just to focus on visuals over gameplay. That's a reality of modern gaming. It is. Gameplay takes a back seat. Even if you're playing like Genshin Impact, gameplay is like third or fourth on the list. And I know people love it and they think it's like super fun, but the visuals and the gamification, the store are more important than the gameplay. They have zero issues going through and changing stuff if it means they think they can get more money. And I have a feeling in the background they're tweaking their algorithms to maximize towards money making more than anything. So yeah, and we'll get back to like the old nostalgic stuff here in a minute, but real quick, topic number 3. Sales, and more sales, and more sales. Don't get me wrong. I love the Steam summer and winter sales. They are wonderful, and I've been doing pretty good about not buying anything. I bought nothing that I can think of in the summer sale. I didn't buy a single thing. Not that I can remember anyway. Maybe I did, but I don't remember ever buying anything at all during the summer sale. Not a single thing. And I'm not saying that sales are bad exactly, but I'm just saying that sales massively devalue. Like, at this point, a lot of people, and you'll hear it all the time. Oh, I'll just wait till there's like a gold edition and I'll just pick it up on sale for like $20 and then I'll play it and I'll enjoy it and then all the bugs will be fixed. Like The Witcher 3. I ended up not playing The Witcher 3 until quite a while after its release. And that's such a weird thing because like I picked up the full collector's edition for like what, $20 or something at the time when I picked it up. I mean, that was cheap. I mean, it's a third of its original cost. And I know that, there's still mass volumes and a lot of the people who purchase these games, they're obviously doing it at launch and stuff like that. But I feel like sales kind of devalue things. And this kind of goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning was like with indies. With indie gaming, they always price low, they always pump sales. And sales are great, right? Sales, obviously, they drive sales. But the problem is that it's created a whole system now where developers, like big publishers, they factor in sales into their profit, like their estimates, because they know that a huge chunk of the gaming community is not going to buy this game until after it goes on sale, which is absurd, which means they're factoring in sales, Like, I get it. Like, if you have a game that's failing, maybe you can do some sales, you can get some more copies sold, and then, maybe you can at least break even or make a little more profit. Who knows? Maybe just be less in the hole. But the fact of the matter is that, in my personal opinion, sales are hurting the industry as a whole. I think they're great for the consumer. I think they're terrible for publishers. And, because we have so many games now that people really wouldn't probably be able to afford a lot of games if it wasn't for the sales. So I'm not saying I hate sales. I just think that they're harming the industry. I think they're devaluing, the industry. I mean, don't get me wrong. There used to be sales back in the day with physical media back in the PlayStation days and stuff like that. There was totally sales back then. 100%. But it's just different. I mean, we're talking massive sales now. Like, you can pick up titles now sometimes for like big budget titles for like 75% off, and it's been out for like 6 months to a year. I mean, how fast did the new Battlefield game go like 50% off? It was super quick, wasn't it? Like the beginning of the following year or something like that. They already had like a super sale on it. Like, why buy a game at full price? Just wait. I mean, I don't think anyone should buy games at launch anymore anyway, because they're usually so utterly broken, or they have other issues. It's usually better to wait. But the fact remains that why just wait for the cheapo sales so you can save a crap ton of money. And, just, I don't know. And I mean, I feel like that's kind of the thing. And, DLC, I think, is another reason when we're seeing a big drive for like cosmetics and stuff like that. I think developers should just stop doing sales. And instead of sales, just lower the base price of the game. Like, as time goes on, make the game cheaper. Because that'll get people, and you'll probably still make more money than you would with the sale. I guess it depends on the game, really. But I would rather to see games stay full price and get free updates than see shit like DLC. Like the new game that's coming out, Darktide, Warhammer 40k Darktide. Really looking forward to that. I really liked Vermintide, and Darktide looks pretty good. I'm hoping that they learn from the DLC experience that they had with Vermintide, where they like kind of split the community and they did a bunch of other dumb shit, and it was really stupid. But there's some other stuff too. But like Darktide, I would much rather have that game be priced at $40 to $50, never go on sale, never lower its price, and we could just get like a ton of, updates. Or, you can be games like Payday, where they're like Payday 2 is like constantly on sale, but it has to be because there's so much damn DLC that no one would ever buy it all, because it would just be like, oh, the game is like $10, and then you look at the DLC and it's like $300 or some shit at like full price. Yeah, that doesn't turn people off. So you have to slam a sale down to get people to like buy it. Now, I will say this, with Payday 2, they don't split the community. So community people can still play together, even if, you don't have the DLC, you just can't use the DLC items. I believe if you can still play the missions if the host has it, which is pretty nice. That's a really good system. Not splitting your community is super important. So the next thing, and the sale one was pretty, simple. I mean, you guys were there. I don't need to explain it. Why am I explaining it? Reboots and remasters. Oh God. Okay, so you know, pretty much a lot of games in here lately. In particular, Call of Duty is very famous. This where they're just rebooting Modern Warfare. They're not just like they've remastered Modern Warfare, but they've also rebooted it and they've called it Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And now they're doing what looks to be the same damn thing with Call of Duty 2. Now, I can't tell if it's a reboot or if it's like a sequel or what. It really makes no sense to me. I haven't played it because, quite frankly, I'm just done buying games. Plus two, it was on the Blizzard store, and I just didn't want to buy it on the Blizzard store. But, like everything's being remastered. Like, okay, great example. Another company does this. Capcom with Resident Evil. You got Resident Evil 4. Came out for the GameCube, and then it got ported to the PlayStation 2. Yeah, it had a really weird thing, right? Like, it was basically on the PlayStation. Even, like, Code Veronica came on the PlayStation. But then for some reason with 4, they're like, hey, we're going to put this on the GameCube, and then we're going to port it to the PS2. It's a very weird path. But then again, maybe they saw what the GameCube could do over the PS2, and maybe they liked it more. I don't know. Who knows? But so they made the remaster, and then they remastered it again, and they have like the HD version or whatever. And now we have the reboot. I own all of these games, and I know it's like, you fucking hypocrite. It's true. It's true. I do. I own these games, but I own the PlayStation 2 version. And I also bought the HD version because I wanted to play it on PC and at work. Which then, of course, I don't know if I don't really know if that's a hypocrite since I bought that stuff so long ago. Maybe it is. I mean, I bought Resident Evil 4 when it came out for PS2. I mean, that was a long time ago. It was almost 20 years ago now. But, you have, what you call it, the new one, and it's basically going to be the same damn game with some enhancements to the gameplay, if you can call it that. Some of the gameplay with Resident Evil where like you can't move while shooting, I think adds a tactical factor to the game where you actually have to think. But they want it to be more actiony, but still more survival horror. They don't want it to be Resident Evil 6. I don't think anyone wants it to be Resident Evil 6. So don't get me wrong, I didn't hate Resident Evil 6, but I don't think anybody wants it to be that. But anyway, so they have that, and then they have the Resident Evil 1. Oh my god. Resident Evil 1, and then they remastered it for the GameCube, and then they remastered it for the 360 and the PS3, and then they remastered it for PC, and then they remastered it for the PS4 and Xbox One. I think it came out for those ones. I know it came out for PC though, because I have it. But it's just like they just keep remastering this shit. It's like, so the reason I bring all this up for 4 minutes or however long I've been talking is the industry just doesn't think anymore. Like, we don't get new titles that are innovative like we used to, in my opinion. Yeah, the movie industry has the same problem, where they're just rebooting old shows and movies. They're just remaking them. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this? Like, seriously, why are you doing this? But games are by far the biggest culprit of that, where they just like remake stuff. And I know sometimes like it can make sense. Like, I know I'm being a little harsh and I'm trying not to be like too critical, but like I'll take the Final Fantasy 7 and 9, and I don't know if they did 8, but I know they did 7 and 9. I never was the biggest fan of 8. I like 8, but like it just doesn't hold the same memory as 7 and 9. And Tactics was I love Tactics, and then they remade that for the PSP, and it's way better, and the story breaks my heart. But the 7 and 9, like them remaking it for PC, and I think it probably also came out for consoles. Probably, I don't really do much console gaming anymore. My PS5 is basically just for Gran Turismo 7. That's all it's for. And I am perfectly okay with that. I love that game. Just have the steering wheel and everything. But back to the topic. With the reboot and remaster of, these games, I guess it would be more of a remaster than a reboot. It is for a new audience. It came out it works properly. It's not just running on an emulator. It has enhanced textures and visuals and all sorts of stuff. I think it has like Steam achievements and all of that crazy stuff. Some general fixes and alterations, I believe, to the gameplay. Mostly, I think it's just bug related. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a very unique experience, and I think that those things are fine. Like, I think that you know teenagers and kids of today should play those old games because they're still really good games. Like, like I was saying earlier with visuals, Final Fantasy IX has an amazing opening. There's no talking in it, but it's just it draws you in. And I have to be honest, I don't get drawn in with modern games. Another really thing, and I'm gonna go back to the visual thing. And this is something I hate about modern games. Too much on screen and too much damn notifications. I don't like hit notifications. I don't like all this stuff on screen. I don't like shooting stuff and seeing like, the damage meters and all that sort of shit. No, 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 no. I want to focus on what I'm doing. I want to be sucked into it. And I'm not gonna do that when half my fucking screen is just bullshit. Like, has anyone ever seen the movie Ready Player One? It's a great movie because there's like a joke. The evil guy who runs the corporation, he's gonna win the event so that then he can take over the metaverse, and I forget what they call it. And he's gonna enhance and put the maximum amount of advertisements and monetizations on screen that they can per player before they would induce a seizure. That is crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. And it just like that's kind of how it feels sometimes with modern games, where there's just so much stuff. Now, I know not every game's like that, and I'm not trying to like do a broad brush paint over everything. So before that comment lands, in fact, that comment's probably going to land because someone's going to smash the pause button, and then they're going to be like, Raven, you're wrong. Not every game does that. Just a couple of the crappy free-to-play games. No, I'm not saying that all games do that, but some games do that, and you know who you are, and you should be ashamed, quite frankly. But back to the reboot and remasters. I think it can be good for the industry, but as I was saying, I think it also makes the industry lazy. I think remastering is fine. I'm much more comfortable with remastering, but I think rebooting is stupid because all you're doing is taking a story and a name that was once popular, and then you're slapping on some modern bullshit, which is probably going to be terrible. It might be good, but it's probably going to be terrible. And then you're basically just going to get the sales because it's Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Like, I don't even know if that game was good or not. I didn't really hear too much about it. Like, I think more people were focused on Warzone than it. That's mostly what I heard people talking about was Warzone when it was coming out. But the fact that I don't know anyone that was really like big into it, and I have some pretty big friends who are really big into Call of Duty, let me tell you, and they didn't really seem interested. I don't know what was with that. Maybe it's because Warzone fills the gap or the need that they already had, so they just didn't care. And maybe it's not because it's a reboot, but it's just because Warzone exists. I don't know. But I would rather see something new than rebooting something old, because I think rebooting something old is just lazy, in my opinion. And I know it's expensive to make up a new game, but so is rebooting an old game. I mean, but the only thing you really have is the prestige of the name, which maybe that's the point. So, with that out of the way, we'll now get to the super fun topic of always online and DRM and why it's bad. This one I am not going to defend at all. There's going to be no defense. This one is going to be pure bashing. So, always online. Does everyone remember when SimCity came out? SimCity 5, aka SimCity. And it was always online, but it was a single player game. And they were like, you need to be online so that you can run our servers for the computations. And then people figured out that they don't actually do any computations. It's purely just DRM. Yeah, that's pretty much what online always is. And unless your game is multiplayer focused, there's literally no reason to be always online. Like Hogwarts Legacy, if that game is always online, that's annoying. Like Metal Gear Solid 5, they have an online mode. You connect to it, gives you a bunch of features, but you can also play it offline. It'll just fail to connect to the thing, and it'll just, you carry on your merry way, and you'll go play a great game. Metal Gear Solid 5 is a great game. But always online, ridiculous. And then let's talk about the fact of DRM combined with that. So, as every gamer probably knows, and if you don't know, this will be new to you, you don't own anything. Like, when you buy a game, you don't own it. You are licensing it. In other words, they can take it away from you anytime they want. Like, I don't know if anyone heard, but Anno 2070. This is not the only game. Ubisoft did this with a bunch of games. If you, like me, I love Anno. I'm a big fan of the Anno franchise. The newer ones were not really my favorite. I don't really like them. But the older ones, big fan. My GOG account, I bought the old ones. I mean, I have them, but it was just easier to grab them from the GOG version. Plus, they're like pre-patched and all that sort of stuff. So, it's nice. But in the case of Anno 2070, if you bought any of the DLC, you lose it now. Because Ubisoft is like, it's expensive running verification servers, so they shut it down. You can now only play in single player, and you can't access any of your DLC. None of it. It's gone. Now, unless they fixed it. I know they did that last week, I think, like early last week. So I don't know if there was enough backlash that they decided to allow you to at least keep your DLC. I'm not sure. But last I heard, nope. Sorry, friends. You lost all your DLC. And that's another big problem because, like, people pay a lot of money for all this monetization with, the free-to-play titles and all this stuff. What are people going to do 10 years from now when it's shut down and they've dumped, like, $500? I guess that's it. They dumped $500. Like, you're fine spending $500 on something you're never going to be able to access. And before someone says, but, I go to the movies and I do that and it's different, okay? It's very different. A movie, you're consuming it and you're watching it. But when you buy a game, you're playing it, you're spending typically, hopefully, if you're spending money, way more hours sitting down in front of it. It's yours. It's installed on your machine, but you don't own it. And I understand in the case of free-to-play titles, it's kind of like that. But paid games, like taking away, like Destiny 2 did, or, Anno 2070, Ubisoft did it with a crap ton of games. Like, there's like a big list. And I know this because someone that I know messaged me and he was like, he's a big Anno fan, like huge Anno fan. And he messaged me, he's like, oh my God, Anno is updating. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Anno is updating. And he was like, yeah, Anno is updating, Anno 2070. And it has like a really big update. He was very excited because he thought that they were like patching it or something. Like it was going to be like, a little bug fix patch. And I checked it and I noticed that the reviews for it had tanked, right? Because Anno 2070 is a pretty popular game. Like, I mean, it's not like Call of Duty or anything, but it's still a fairly popular game. And so I saw the first review and saw that someone had mentioned that Ubisoft was taking away stuff. And then I found the link and I sent it to him. And then we both got bummed because, yeah, they basically just took away our game. Now, in his case, he's already been verified, so I don't think he actually loses his DLC. But what if he were to, like, I don't know, uninstall it? Or in my case, I don't have Anno 2070 installed, so I can't play the DLC that I paid for? What a bunch of bullshit. Of course, I knew this because, again, I'm aware that I don't own anything, but I miss the old days. I miss the old days when I would buy a game and own it, and that's something that I feel like the industry needs to start moving back to. I understand that there's big money for companies in free-to-play and gamification and all these DLC monetizations and all that sort of crap. But I feel that as gamers, we need to put a stop to it and just stop buying. Stop buying these shitty-ass games that are doing this stuff. Like, they're doing it because we allow it. If everyone just said, hey, I'm going to use Destiny 2 as an example here. Hey, Destiny 2, we don't really like the fact that, like, you took away, our paid DLC for some bullshit reason because you wanted to, like, shrink the file size of the game because you're whatever. Because consoles don't have enough disk space, and just stop playing it, and then just didn't buy their upcoming expansion at the time, that would have changed a lot. That would have changed so much. That would have even changed other games, because they'd have been like, holy crap, gamers united and got together. I mean, it's kind of weird, but gamers almost have to unionize to a certain degree. Like, it's literally getting to that point, in my opinion. I don't know, some people will be like, oh, that's very hyperbole there. You're saying this stuff. It's like, no, it's like people are allowing companies to treat them like garbage. And that's just a fact. People are allowing companies to just treat them like cash cows, and they're putting out mediocre-ass product, And then in a couple years, when they're like, this server's kind of expensive, it costs us a couple $100, we better kill it because, it's like there's no way that their authentication services for DLC and stuff cost that much money. Now, multiplayer, fine. That shouldn't even cost that much money. It's not like they host any of it. It's purely just the peer-to-peer matchmaking. This is actually one good solid argument for Steam, because Steam has never done this ever in the entire history of Steam. It's always been a developer doing it. And even to this day, there are games on Steam that are older than probably some people listening to this video that still function in multiplayer because they use Steam's networking features, which is crazy. So yeah, I mean, I'm just not a fan of DRM. And then you got the anti-cheat bullshit. That is an absolutely absurd thing. Like, so I know a lot of people out there are not developers, and a lot of people out there aren't big techies, and they're not security people, and they don't really focus on technology and security and stuff like that. And that's fair. I understand that. To be fair, that's not even my focus. My focus with programming has always been, graphics, physics, application development, systems type stuff. I don't really do that specific sort of thing. But these DRMs that run in Ring Zero are dangerous. And I know a lot of people out there are like, ugh, yet another YouTuber who's talking about how terrible like Valorant and all these other anti-cheats are, and they just don't understand. The company told me that it's safe. Look, I'm hoping that nothing bad ever happens with these DRMs. Truly am. I'm truly hoping. However, these things run at the level of your kernel. They can do whatever the hell they want. Not only do they read and scan memory, they could uninstall programs. Malware could infect your machine, abuse an exploit, and then gain full access to your system. People just do not understand the security implications. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. So way back in the day, Sony decided that they were amazing and that they needed to protect people from copying their music off of CDs, which is interesting because that's actually legal. But they needed to protect their CDs. And so they actually installed a malware, a rootkit to be specific, into your CD drives that ended up causing a big lawsuit. Now, people back then fought it. This is the exact same bullshit. The only difference is, and the only reason Sony got in trouble is because they didn't say they were doing it. They didn't say, hey, when you insert this disc, we're going to immediately install, as soon as you play a song or initialize the disc, a rootkit to prevent you from doing XYZ, whatever. And now Valorant and all these others, they are being upfront about it, which is the big key defining difference, because that's actually what sunk Sony. They just didn't notify anyone that they were doing it. They had to tell people, which who the hell would ever agree to that shit? I mean, and if you didn't understand it, like people would be like, what? People probably would have accepted it, but they would not have made such a major lawsuit. The other interesting point was it overwrote the firmware and stuff. So Sony was never able to fully remove it. They claimed that they did, but I don't think they were ever able to fully remove it. I think they were able to just mitigate it to the point where it was, useless, but it was still there. And, with Valorant, I like Valorant. I just don't believe that if you want to install it, it uninstalls everything. I just don't. I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. How would you know? There is no way to tell because you don't know what kind of files it created when it was running. You don't know what sort of analytical data it's harvesting while it's running. And I know they say, we don't do that. Bullshit. Analytical data is one of the most, it's how YouTube and Google make all their money. Literally all their money comes from it. Selling personal data is a huge market. I don't believe for a second that Valorant doesn't do that. I don't. Maybe they don't, but I don't believe it. I would have to actually see their code and everything for their system setup, which is never going to happen, by the way. But yeah, I just don't believe it. And so it doesn't. The best part, the part I love the most, is it doesn't block cheaters. You have this obtrusive as hell DRM, anti-cheat, which is way worse. A lot of people say back in the day, you had Punk Buster, and it always read the memory. Yeah, but it was not nearly as intrusive as some of this modern anti-cheat, and this stuff should not be allowed. But it doesn't stop cheaters. You know what does stop cheaters though? Dedicated servers. which is now the next topic, because the lack of dedicated servers in gaming is just annoying. And then this kind of goes back to more of, well, kind of everything I've been saying. Like, I don't really feel like there's a community anymore in gaming. We just kind of join, we hit the matchmaking button, we go play with some random people. Maybe we play with people in our party. But I remember back in the day playing like Call of Duty and Call of Duty 2. And I had to specify that because typically when I say Call of Duty, people probably don't think of the original one. But I remember playing that in Quake 3, Quake 2, Command and Conquer Renegade. I played a lot of that game. I loved that game. But it had dedicated servers. And so you would play on the server and people would know you. People would say hi. People would tell you to fuck off because, they didn't like you. Nah, I tease. Usually the servers were actually very welcoming. They were not as toxic. Like, was there trash talking? Oh God, yeah. Trash talking was not frowned upon in the early 2000s like it is now. So there was some trash talking, let me tell you. But for the most part, it was fairly friendly. Like, there was trash talking, and that might have seemed, abrasive to a lot, but there was no maliciousness behind it. I mean, sometimes there was, and depending on the server, it would either stay or go. Some server admins were fine with trash talking, but they were not fine with malicious behavior. But you had a community, and you would always play on that community, and people knew you, and you would play. And sometimes you'd play on like a series of communities, or like when I play Command and Conquer Renegade, I don't remember the name of the community, but I do remember that they ran like 3 or 4 servers, somewhere around there. And I would just rotate around those servers because they were usually pretty full. But everybody would do that. So you would still end up with like the same couple hundred people, everybody knew everybody, and you would just play and have a good time. Now, for those of you who have never played Command & Conquer Renegade, because it's an amazing game and it's awesome, and there's a remake in UDK. It's not as great, but it's still pretty damn good, and maybe they'll update it to a newer build of Unreal. But basically, they took Command & Conquer the RTS. They left in the RTS elements to a certain degree. But then they added in first person. So it has a whole, single player campaign, which is actually not a half bad campaign as far as things go. I rated up there with Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which was also a pretty damn good game. Or even like Quake 2. But with that said, going back, so it was an RTS game, and everybody was running around shooting each other because it had the FPS element. And one person was the commander, and they would buy stuff and manage and all kinds of other stuff. And like I said, it was great, right? Like, it was actually amazing. Like, you'd go to the buildings, you'd purchase like a mammoth tank, and then you'd roll it out, and then you'd go blow stuff up or die. And I mean, some people didn't like it, especially these days, because like I guess the gameplay is more rudimentary. There's no progression in it really. But it was still a very good game, and it was amazing to play. I loved it. Personally, it's probably partly because I'm a huge Command and Conquer fan. But with that said, I just thought it was a damn fine game. And again, dedicated servers. Battlefield 4 is still going. In fact, there's probably more people playing Battlefield 4 now than the new one, Battlefield 2042 or 44, whatever the hell it's called. And dedicated servers. There's a community. There's no dedicated servers anymore in games. Even the new ones, they're like, oh, there's dedicated servers. You go to the menu, and then you hit a button, and it pulls up, and then you create the server, and it dynamically creates the server. No. That only meets the definition of a dedicated server. When I say dedicated server, I'm talking like community-run dedicated servers. Where is that stuff? Call of Duty Modern Warfare had it. Call of Duty World at War had it. Call of Duty Black Ops kind of sort of had it. Not really, kind of did though, but like lost the modding and all that other stuff. And then after that, it just kind of faded into oblivion. Like, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 didn't have it. Black Ops did. And then, onward, it was just peer-to-peer bullshit, and it sucked. And that's kind of my thing. Like, it's all peer-to-peer, dynamically created servers. And, you look at games like Ark. For all of its issues, Ark is so popular. Why do you think that is? Developers out there who are listening to this that actually have say in their company on, things. Why do you think game like Ark? Because Ark has a lot of issues. Like, there were issues with the price and the expansion, the map packs, whatever the hell they're called. and all that stuff. And yet it's still a popular game. And why is that? Because there's freaking dedicated servers. That's why. Because people can run their own servers. They can create their own rules and all sorts of stuff. And they manage it. And it's amazing. And there's a community. Like, there's no community anymore. And I think that's in part why modern games are seen as so toxic. Because you don't know that person. You don't know if they're just trash talking or if they're just being a jackass. You have no idea. Literally no idea. How would you know? There is no way to know. You would know better if it was a dedicated server because you would actually talk to that person far more often, and you might realize that they're just trash talking. They don't mean anything by it. Or you might realize that they're a jackass and you need to, flick them out of the server. Because believe it or not, while I'm totally fine with trash talking, I'm not fine with people being malicious just for the sake of being malicious. I'm not fine with trolling and all that sort of stuff. So, but trash talking's okay. Like, it's fun. I do it. I love it when it's done to me. It's great. It's good fun. But don't be mean to people just to be mean to people. Don't be serious about it. That's very important. But like Ark has some crazy mods and some crazy servers, and they're wonderful. Conan Exiles, same thing. Like, some developers are starting to realize that people actually do want to be able to mod their games and run their own servers. And guess what? As the developer, all you have to do is run the master server, which is really cheap by comparison. I mean, granted, you might have to still run a couple dedicated servers, but that's not too bad. But, Minecraft. Oh my God. Look at Minecraft. Could you guys imagine if Minecraft had come out and you had to rent a server, or it was only peer-to-peer? It would not be anywhere near the popularity that it is now. First off, when it came out, a lot of the systems that enable some of the bullshit that we have now didn't exist. And, I know on the consoles, I think they have the option to rent dedicated servers, but they're kind of crappy. Like, I don't think you have the same customization options as you do with the PC version or the, Windows Linux version. I know they merged like Bedrock or something. I don't know. They merged Microsoft accounts recently, but I think there's still a distinction between the Java and the Bedrock version. But even still, like, the modding community is huge, and it is, in my opinion, the sole reason that Minecraft is as big as it is. I know it's big on consoles, but I'm pretty sure that that pales in comparison to the people that play it on, a computer, like a proper computer, not a gaming console, but an actual computer. Which leads me to the next thing, which is modding. Developers, we want to mod games. I'm not saying every game needs modding. There are games out there that don't need modding, like Resident Evil 8, The Village, doesn't need modding. It's a great game, stands up fine on its own. But a lot of games, like Battlefield, I want modding. I want to create custom maps. I want to create like really crazy stuff. Like, I want, guns to have like, I don't know, every ammo is explosive and everybody's running around with basically fully automatic auto-firing grenade launchers effectively. Like, I want that. Is it stupid and absurd? Oh, hell yes. But it's fun. And every now and again, it's fun to have a server with customizations like that. Same thing with like, I mean, even like the N64, like GoldenEye had lots of customizations for its split screen multiplayer mode, and you'd like go through, and you could do certain things like everybody only has golden guns, or everybody only has grenades. Have you ever played GoldenEye 007 with only grenades? It's magical. I have a really fond memory of me playing with my cousin, my brother, and my sister, and throwing grenades around everywhere, and the whole map just blowing up as we're just killing each other, or only playing with the what is it, that remote mine thing or whatever. I forget what it's called. It's been a very long time since I've played it, and just laying traps and everybody blowing each other up by chucking those things at each other. And of course the golden gun modes where everybody runs around and basically one shots whoever shoots first and hits wins. But modding is fun. Like I said, Ark. Like, some of the mods for Ark, like, I can't even play base Ark. Like, base Ark is boring. It's like Factorio. I like Factorio, even the base Factorio, but I load it down with some mods, let me tell you. I mean, I load it down. I mean, they don't take up a lot of file size, but let me tell you what. I have no idea how to play vanilla Factorio anymore. I get confused because I've played a modified version of Factorio so much at this point that I can't remember how to play. It's absurd. It's silly and it's goofy, but there we go. But, that's not the only thing. Like, there are other games that have mods. Did you know that there's actually a modding community around Resident Evil 2? Yeah. I don't know if they're still active, but I know at one time they were. They were, like, fixing bugs. They were fixing, adding visual effects and all kinds of stuff. It's like, wait, what? Like, they were overhauling the graphics, and it was crazy. Same thing for Metal Gear Solid. Allowing people to mod games is a time-honored tradition. And game developers who don't allow that, in my opinion, are, just terrible. I mean, again, you don't own your games, so they can't really allow you to do that because a lot of games now factor in selling junk to you. So they can't do things like what Ark and other games do because it would interfere with them selling junk to you that you don't even need. And if you had modding, guess what? They would do it like Skyrim. Oh my god! Like, I think probably the only reason Skyrim has lasted as long as it has is because of all the damn mods. I mean, think about it. You remember when they tried to add the paid mod shit into Skyrim, and they effectively had to gimp for a moment, actual modding because it was interfering with their platform because people were just like, why on earth would I spend that much money for a suit of armor when I could just go download this one off of like Nexus Mods or the Steam Workshop or whatever? Like, why? It's totally true. Why do it when you can just click a button on Steam, boom, there it is, didn't cost you a penny? So games have to intentionally build themselves around bullshit. Fallout 76 is a great example of that. You pay for it. It's got paid DLC. And it's also got a really nasty cash shop, in my opinion. But Fallout 4 had a huge modding community while still having expansions. It's the damnedest thing. No, I don't know. Maybe Fallout 76 has modding. I'm not really sure. I don't think it does, though. I'm pretty sure I would have heard about that because I know someone that plays it and they've never mentioned it. So, but yeah, I miss modding. There was this really nice Call of Duty Modern Warfare mod that I played way back in the day, and it was the zombie one. If anyone ever played it, and I used to play it on servers, and it was really funny because people would like on the maps that they would play it. Right, it'd be like usually like really bad, so people would like jump up on buildings and stuff. And basically, so one person starts as the zombie, and then everyone else is a zombie, and then when the zombie kills you, you become a zombie. Like, you die and rise up as a zombie. And so what players would do effectively is they would basically just, try to survive as long as possible. They get up on top of buildings, they glitch on top of stuff and shoot the zombies away. And the zombies did a lot of damage, by the way. They didn't one-shot you. Well, I think the first zombie could, but the lackey zombies were not as tough. And it was kind of hard at times. Like, there were some maps players would like bunch up and you got like 63 people basically pointing at a doorway. That does a lot of damage. But they eventually run out of bullets. And so, yeah, I mean, that sort of stuff was fun. I mean, it's silly and it's absurd, but it was fun. StarCraft 2. Warcraft 3 and StarCraft have an amazing modding community. Well, they used to. Especially Warcraft 3. Amazing. There are some incredible maps, like the Jurassic map, the Jurassic World one, where like basically you crash land on an island and you have to build up defenses. It's like a horde game, basically, lots of enemies come at you, dinosaurs, and you kill them with your base defenses and so forth. There's tons of Warcraft 3 maps like that. That's not the only one. There's the Empires one, which is they're visually they're very Warcrafty because they do use a lot of the assets. They do use custom models, but you were limited depending on when the model was made, how big the map could be. So you couldn't always store a bunch of data in there. They could be 100 megabytes now, which is pretty darn crazy. But yeah, I mean, Warcraft 3 has some absolutely just amazing maps. Like the Empires one's amazing. Like, I love that one. Fighting against the NPCs, and it can be pretty tough on the harder difficulties trying to like build up an army and carve your way through it. Especially if you allow too many of those obelisks to grow. That gets pretty nasty trying to destroy those things later. So crazy. But anyway, I guess the TLDR of this is modding good. Dedicated servers good, DRM bad, reboots and remasters can be good, but reboots are lazy, remasters can be okay. Sales diminish the quality of games, in my personal opinion. Too much heavy focus on visuals, not enough on gameplay, and monetization models, modern ones, are bad. I just want to pay for my game and then go play it. That's all I want to do. So I think that's going to be it for this first podcast. I know it's a little all over the place, but welcome to my brain. And, if you have any comments or anything, feel free to put them down below, and or join the Discord. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Y'all have a good one. Hey everyone, thanks for watching Raven Gaming Labs. Thanks to all the members and viewers who make RGL possible. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so that you can be notified. If you want to become a member, hit the join button or link in the description below. Members get early access to videos, member-exclusive content, and more. As well, don't forget to join our awesome community over at Discord. Y'all have a good one.